I thought I would start a little reading series on Virginia Woolf because she is my all-time favorite author, and I am in a book club currently with my friend Dana, and we're reading The Waves. Our book club is tomorrow, so we have a lot of reading to do, so I figured this could be a fun way to get some of it done. I first read Woolf sophomore year of college and had that moment where I felt like I'd been waiting for her work my whole life. And a lot of writers experience that, where they find another author that is saying everything they had always been trying to say and didn't know how to properly phrase. So I am always blown away and in awe of everything she has written. I've only read To the Lighthouse, Mrs. Dalloway, and now this, so I have a lot left to read. But anyway, she was a genius, and I recommend reading anything by her. I mean, obviously I haven't read the other stuff, but I'm sure it's fantastic. So yeah, I got this for $1 about a year ago at Book Barn in Connecticut. Shout out to Book Barn. And I'm just getting around to it, which long time coming. So I hope you enjoy. I'll be starting page 51, which it might sound weird to start there, but it actually is in an order of just different parts in these characters' lives and is a very unique structure, which is basically a lack of structure. Free indirect discourse, is that what that's called? I don't remember. But yeah, so it wouldn't spoil anything to jump ahead, and I am starting from where I read a couple pages, and then we'll read some pages I haven't read yet. But I just wanted to start at 51 because it's at a break point in their transitions, if that made any sense. Enjoy. The complexity of things becomes more close, said Bernard. Here at college, where the stir and pressure of life are so extreme, where the excitement of mere living becomes daily more urgent. Every hour something new is unburied in the great bran pie. What am I ask. This? No, I am that. Especially now, when I have left a room and people talking, and the stone flags ring out with my solitary footsteps, and I behold the moon rising, sublimely, indifferently, over the ancient chapel. Then it becomes clear that I am not one and simple, but complex and many. Bernard in public bubbles, in private is secretive. That is what they do not understand, for they are now undoubtedly discussing me, saying I escape them, am evasive. They do not understand that I have to effect different transitions, have to cover the entrances and exits of several different men who alternately act their parts as Bernard. I am abnormally aware of circumstances. I can never read a book in a railway carriage without asking, is he a builder? Is she unhappy? I was aware today, acutely, that poor Symes, with his pimple, was feeling how bitterly that his chance of making a good impression upon Billy Jackson was remote. Feeling this painfully, I invited him to dinner. With ardor. I said that wrong. This he will attribute to an admiration which is not mine, that is true, but joined to the sensibility of a woman. I am here quoting my own biographer. Bernard possessed the logical sobriety of a man. Now people who make a single impression, and that, in the main, a good one, for there seems to be a virtue in simplicity, are those who keep their equilibrium in midstream. I instantly see fish, with their noses one way, the stream rushing past another. Cannon, Lysette, Peters, Hawkins, Larpent, Neville, all fish in midstream. But you understand, you, myself, who always comes at a call. That would be a harrowing experience to call and for no one to come. that would make the midnight hollow and explains the expression of old men in clubs. They have given up calling for a self who does not come. You understand that I am only superficially represented by what I was saying tonight. Underneath, and at the moment when I am most disparate, I am also integrated. I sympathize effusively. I also sit like a toad in a hole, receiving with perfect coldness whatever comes. Very few of you who are now discussing me have the double capacity to feel, to reason. Lysette, you see, believes in running after hares. Hawkins has spent a most industrious afternoon in the library. Peters has his young lady at the circulating library. You are all engaged, involved, drawn in, and absolutely energized to the top of your bent. All save Neville, whose mind is far too complex to be roused by any single activity. I also am too complex. In my case, something remains floating, unattached. Now, as a proof of my susceptibility to atmosphere, here, as I come into my room and turn on the light and see the sheet of paper, the table, my gown lying negligently over the back of the chair, I feel that I am that dashing yet reflective man, that bold and deleterious figure who, lightly throwing off his cloak, seizes his pen and at once flings off the following letter to the girl with whom he is passionately in love. Yes, all is propitious. I am now in the mood. I can write the letter straight off, which I have begun ever so many times. I have just come in. I have flung down my hat and my stick. I am writing the first thing that comes into my head, without troubling to put the paper straight. It is going to be a brilliant sketch which, she must think, was written without a pause, without an erasure. Look how unformed the letters are. There is a careless blot. All must be sacrificed to speed and carelessness. I will write a quick, running, small hand, exaggerating the downstroke of the Y and crossing the T thus with a dash. The date shall be only Tuesday, the 17th, and then a question mark. But also, I must give her the impression that though he, for this is not myself, is writing in such an offhand, such a slapdash way, there is some subtle suggestion of intimacy and respect. I must allude to talks we have had together, bring back some remembered scene, but it must seem to her, this is very important, to be passing from thing to thing with the greatest ease in the world. I shall pass from the service for the man who was drowned, I have a phrase for that, to Mrs. Moffat and her sayings, I have a note of them, and so to some reflections apparently casual but full of profundity. Profound criticism is often written casually. About some book I have been reading, some out-of-the-way book. I want her to say as she brushes her hair or puts out the candle, "Where did I read that? Oh, in Bernard's letter." It is the speed, the hot molten effect, the lava flow of sentence into sentence that I need. Who am I thinking of? Byron, of course. I am in some ways like Byron. Perhaps a sip of Byron will help to put me in vein. Let me read a page. No, this is dull. This is scrappy. This is rather too formal. Now I am getting the hang of it. Now I am getting his beat into my brain. The rhythm is the main thing in writing. Now, without pausing, I will begin on the very lilt of the stroke. Yet it falls flat. It peters out. I cannot get up steam enough to carry me over the transition. My true self breaks off from my assumed. And if I begin to rewrite it, she will feel Bernard is posing as a literary man. Bernard is thinking of his biographer, which was true. No, I will write the letter tomorrow directly after breakfast. Now let me fill my mind with imaginary pictures. Let me suppose that I am asked to stay at Restover, King's Lofton? I don't know. Station Langley, 3 miles. I arrive in the dusk. In the courtyard of this shabby but distinguished house, there are 2 or 3 dogs, slinking, long-legged. There are faded rugs in the hall. A military gentleman smokes a pipe as he paces the terrace. The note is of distinguished poverty and military connections. A hunter's hoof on the writing table, a favorite horse. Do you ride? Yes, sir, I love riding. My daughter expects us in the drawing room. My heart pounds against my ribs. She is standing at a low table. She has been hunting. She munches sandwiches like a tomboy. I make a fairly good impression on the colonel. I'm not too clever, he thinks. I am not too raw. Also, I play billiards. Then the nice maid, who has been with the family 30 years, comes in. The pattern on the plates is of oriental long-tailed birds. Her mother's portrait in muslin hangs over the fireplace. I can sketch the surroundings up to a point with extraordinary ease. But can I make it work? Extraordinary ease. That was cut off. Can I hear her voice, the precise tone with which, when we are alone, she says, Bernard? And then, what next? The truth is that I need the stimulus of other people. Alone over my dead fire, I tend to see the thin places in my own stories. The real novelist, the perfectly simple human being, could go on indefinitely, imagining. He would not integrate as I do. He would not have this devastating sense of gray ashes and a burnt-out grate. Some blind flaps in my eyes. Everything becomes impervious. I cease to invent. Let me recollect. It has been, on the whole, a good day. The drop that forms on the roof of the soul in the evening is round, many-colored. There was the morning, fine. There was the afternoon, walking. I like views of spires across gray fields. I like glimpses between people's shoulders. Things kept popping into my head. I was imaginative, subtle. After dinner, I was dramatic. I put into concrete form many things that we had dimly observed about our common friends. I made my transitions easily. But now let me ask myself the final question as I sit over this gray fire with its naked promontories of black coal. Which of these people am I? It depends so much upon the room. When I say to myself, Bernard, who comes? A faithful, sardonic man, disillusioned but not embittered. A man of no particular age or calling, myself merely. It is he who now takes the poker and rattles the cinders so that they fall in showers through the grate. Lord, he says to himself, watching them fall, what a pother. And then he adds lugubriously, but with some sense of consolation, Mrs. Moffat will come and sweep it all up. I fancy I shall often repeat to myself that phrase as I rattle and bang through life, hitting first this side of the carriage, then the other. Oh yes, Mrs. Mrs. Moffat will come and sweep it all up, and so to bed. Now we're moving into a different character's perspective. In a world which contains the present moment, said Neville, why discriminate? Nothing should be named, lest by so doing we change it. Let it exist, this bank, this beauty, and I, for one instant steeped in pleasure. The sun is hot. I see the river. I see trees specked and burnt in the autumn sunlight. Boats float past through the red, through the green. Far away a bell tolls, but not for death. There are bells that ring for life. A leaf falls from joy. Oh, I am in love with life. Look how the willow shoots its fine sprays into the air. Look how through them a boat passes, filled with indolent, with unconscious, with powerful young men. They are listening to the gramophone. They are eating fruit out of paper bags. They are tossing the skins of bananas, which then sink, eel-like, into the river. All they do is beautiful. There are cruets behind them and ornaments. Their rooms are full of oars and oleographs, but they have turned all to beauty. That boat passes under the bridge. Another comes, then another. That is Percival, lounging on the cushions, monolithic in giant repose. No, it is only one of his satellites, imitating his monolithic, his giant repose. He alone is unconscious of their tricks, and when he catches them at it, he buffets them good-humoredly with a blow of his paw. They too have passed under the bridge through the fountains of the pendant trees, through its fine strokes of yellow and plum color. The breeze stirs, the curtain quivers. I see behind the leaves the grave, yet eternally joyous buildings, which seem porous, not gravid, light, though set so immemorially on the ancient turf. Now begins to rise in me the familiar rhythm. Words that have lain dormant now lift, now toss their crests and fall and rise and fall and rise. Again, I am a poet, yes, surely I am a great poet. Boats and youth passing in distant trees, the falling fountains of the pendant trees. I see it all, I feel it all, I am inspired. My eyes fill with tears, yet even as I feel this, I lash my frenzy higher and higher. It foams. It becomes artificial, insincere. Words and words and words, how they gallop, how they lash their long manes and tails. But for some fault in me, I cannot give myself to their backs. I cannot fly with them, scattering women in string bags. There is some flaw in me, some fatal hesitancy, which, if I pass it over, turns to foam and falsity. Yet it is incredible that I should not be a great poet. What did I write last night if it was not good poetry? Am I too fast, too facile? I do not know. I do not know myself sometimes, or how to measure and name and count out the grains that make me what I am. Something now leaves me. Something goes from me to meet that figure who is coming, and assures me that I know him before I see who it is. How curiously one is changed by the addition, even at a distance, of a friend. How useful an office one's friends perform when they recall us. Yet how painful to be recalled, to be mitigated, to have oneself adulterated, mixed up, become part of another. As he approaches, I become not myself, but Neville mixed with somebody. With whom? With Bernard? Yes, it is Bernard. And it is to Bernard that I shall put the question, who am I? How strange, said Bernard. The willow looks seen together. I was Byron, and the tree was Byron's tree, lachrymose, down showering, lamenting. Now that we look at the tree together, it has a combined look, each branch distinct, and I will tell you what I feel under the compulsion of your clarity. I feel your disapproval. I feel your force. I become with you an untidy and impulsive human being whose bandana handkerchief is forever stained with the grease of crumpets. Yes, I hold Gray's elegy in one hand. With the other, I scoop sticks to the bottom of the plate. Nope, I skipped a page. I scoop out the bottom crumpet that has absorbed all the butter and sticks to the bottom of the plate. This offends you. I feel your distress acutely, inspired by it and anxious to regain your good opinion. I proceed to tell you how I have just pulled Percival out of bed. I describe his slippers, his table, his guttered candle, his surly and complaining accents as I pull the blankets off his feet, he burrowing like some vast cocoon meanwhile. I describe all this in such a way that, centered as you are upon some private sorrow, for a hooded shape presides over our encounter, you give way, you laugh and delight in me. My charm and flow of language, unexpected and spontaneous as it is, delights me too. I am astonished, as I draw the veil off things with words, how infinitely more than I can say I have observed. More and more bubbles into my mind as I talk, images and images. This, I say to myself, is what I need. Why, I ask, can I not finish the letter that I am writing? For my room is always scattered with unfinished letters. I begin to suspect, when I am with you, that I am among the most gifted of men. I am filled with the delight of youth, with potency, with the sense of what is to come. Blundering but fervid, I see myself buzzing round flowers, humming down scarlet cups, making blue funnels resound with my prodigious booming. How richly I shall enjoy my youth. You make me feel. And London, and freedom, but stop. You are not listening. You are making some protest as you slide with an inexpressibly familiar gesture, your hand along your knee. By such signs we diagnose our friends' diseases. Do not in your affluence and plenty, you seem to say, pass me by. Stop, you say. Ask me what I suffer. Let me then create you. You have done as much for me. You lie on this hot bank in this lovely, this fading, this still bright October day, watching boat after boat float through the coned out twigs of the willow tree. And you wish to be a poet, and you wish to be a lover, but the splendid clarity of your intelligence and the remorseless honesty of your intellect, these Latin words I owe you, these qualities of yours make me shift a little uneasily and see the faded patches, the thin strands in my own equipment, bring you to a halt. You indulge in no mystifications. You do not fog yourself with rosy clouds or yellow. My foot fell asleep, so I had to cut, and now I'm back. Here we go. Am I right? Have I read the little gesture of your left hand correctly? If so, give me your poems. Hand over the sheets you wrote last night in such a fervor of inspiration that you now feel a little sheepish. For you distrust inspiration, yours or mine. Let us go back together over the bridge under the elm trees to my room, where, with walls round us and red serge curtains drawn, we can shut out these distracting voices, scents, and savors of lime trees and other lives, these pert shop girls disdainfully tripping, these shuffling, heavy-laden old women, these furtive glimpses of some vague and vanishing figure. It might be Ginny, it might be Susan, or was that Rhoda disappearing down the avenue? Again, from some slight twitch, I guess you're feeling. I have escaped you. I have gone buzzing like a swarm of bees, endlessly vagrant, with none of your power of fixing remorselessly upon a single object. But I will return. When there are buildings like these, said Neville, I cannot endure that there should be shop girls. Their titter, their gossip offends me, breaks into my stillness and nudges me, in moments of purest exaltation, to remember our degradation. By now, we have regained our territory after that brief brush with the bicycles and the lime scent and the vanishing figures in the distracted street. Here we are, masters of tranquility and order, inheritors of proud tradition. The lights are beginning to make yellow slits across the square. Mists from the river are filling these ancient spaces. They cling gently to the hoary stone. The leaves now are thick in country lanes. Sheep cough in the damp fields. But here in your room we are dry. We talk privately. The fire leaps and sinks, making some knob bright. You have been reading Byron. You have been marking the passages that seem to approve of your own character. I find marks against all those sentences which seem to express a sardonic yet passionate nature, a moth-like impetuosity dashing itself against hard glass. You thought as you drew your pencil there, I too throw off my cloak like that. I too snap my fingers in the face of destiny. Yet Byron never made tea as you do, who fill the pot so that when you put the lid on, the tea spills over. There is a brown pool on the table. It is running among your books and papers. Now you mop it up, clumsily, with your pocket handkerchief. You then stuff your handkerchief back into your pocket. That is not Byron. That is you. That is so essentially you that if I think of you in 20 years' time, when we are both famous, gouty, and intolerable, it will be by that scene. And if you are dead, I shall weep. Once you were Tolstoy's young man, now you are Byron's young man. Perhaps you will be Meredith's young man. Then you will visit Paris in the Easter vacation and come back wearing a black tie, some detestable Frenchman whom nobody has ever heard of. Then I shall drop you. I am one person, myself. I do not impersonate Catullus, whom I adore. I am the most Slavish of students, with here a dictionary, there a notebook, in which I enter curious uses of the past participle. But one cannot go on forever cutting these ancient inscriptions clearer with a knife. Shall I always draw the red serge curtain close and see my book, laid like a block of marble pale under the lamp, That would be a glorious life, to addict oneself to perfection, to follow the curve of the sentence wherever it might lead, into deserts, under drifts of sand, regardless of lures of seductions, to be poor always and unkempt, to be ridiculous in Piccadilly. But I am too nervous to end my sentence properly. I speak quickly, as I pace up and down to conceal my agitation. I hate your greasy handkerchiefs. You will stain your copy of Don Juan. You are not listening to me. You are making phrases about Byron, and while you gesticulate with your cloak, your cane, I am trying to expose a secret told to nobody yet. I am asking you, as I stand with my back to you, to take my life in your hands and tell me whether I am doomed always to cause repulsion in those I love. I stand with my back to you fidgeting. No, my hands are now perfectly still, precisely opening a space in the bookcase. I insert Don Juan there. I would rather be loved. I would rather be famous than follow perfection through sand. But am I doomed to cause disgust? Am I a poet? Take it. The desire which is loaded behind my lips, cold as lead, fell as a bullet. The thing I aim at shopgirls, women, the pretense, the vulgarity of life, because I love it, shoots at you as I throw, catch it, my poem. He has shot like an arrow from the room, said Bernard. He has left me his poem. O friendship, I too will press flowers between the pages of Shakespeare's sonnets. O friendship, how piercing are your darts, there, again there. He looked at me, turning to face me. He gave me his poem. All mists curl off the roof of my being. That confidence I shall keep to my dying day. Like a long wave, like a roll of heavy waters, he went over me. His devastating presence, dragging me open, laying bare the pebbles on the shore of my soul. It was humiliating. I was turned to small stones. All semblances were rolled up. You are not Byron, you are yourself. To be contracted by another person into a single being, how strange. How strange to feel the line that is spun from us lengthening its fine filament across the misty spaces of the intervening world. He is gone. I stand here, holding his poem. Between us is this line, but now, how comfortable, how reassuring to feel that alien presence removed, that scrutiny darkened and hooded over. How grateful to draw the blinds and admit no other presence, to feel returning from the dark corners in which they took refuge, those shabby inmates, those familiars whom, with his superior force, he drove into hiding. The mocking, the observant spirits who, even in the crisis and stab of the moment, watched on my behalf, now come flocking home again. With their addition, I am Bernard, I am Byron, I am this, that, and the other. They darken the air and enrich me, as of old, with their antics, their comments, and cloud the fine simplicity of my moment of emotion. For I am more selves than Neville thinks. We are not simple as our friends would have us to meet their needs. Yet love is simple. Now they have returned, my inmates, my familiars. Now the stab, the rent in my defenses that Neville made with his astonishing fine rapport is repaired. I am almost whole now, and see how jubilant I am, bringing into play all that Neville ignores in me. I feel as I look from the window, parting the curtains, that would give him no pleasure, but it rejoices me. We use our friends to measure our own stature. My scope embraces what Neville never reaches. They are shouting hunting songs over the way. They are celebrating some run with the beagles. The little boys in caps who always turned at the same moment when the break went round the corner are clapping each other on the shoulder and boasting. But Neville, delicately avoiding interference, stealthily like a conspirator, hastens back to his room. I see him sunk in his low chair, gazing at the fire which has assumed for the moment an architectural solidity. If life, he thinks, could wear that permanence, if life could have that order, for above all he desires order and detests my Byronic untidiness, and so draws his curtain and bolts his door. His eyes, for he is in love, the sinister figure of love presided at our encounter, fill with longing, fill with tears. He snatches the poker and with one blow destroys that momentary appearance of solidity and the burning coals. All changes. And youth and love. The boat has floated through the arch of the willows and is now under the bridge. Percival, Tony, Archie, or another will go to India. We shall not meet again. Then he stretches his hand for his copybook, a neat volume bound in mottled paper, and writes feverishly long lines of poetry in the manner of whomever he admires most at the moment. But I want to linger, to lean from the window, to listen. There again comes the rollicking chorus. They are now smashing china, that also is the convention. The chorus, like a torrent jumping rocks, brutally assaulting old trees, pours with splendid abandonment headlong over precipices. On they roll, on they gallop. After hounds, after footballs, they pump up and down, attached to oars like sacks of flour. All divisions are merged. They act like one man. The gusty October wind blows the uproar in bursts of sound and silence across the court. Now again they are smashing the china. That is convention. An old, unsteady woman carrying a bag trots home under the fire-red windows. She is half afraid that they will fall on her and tumble her into the gutter. Yet she pauses as if to warm her knobbed, rheumatic-y hands at the bonfire, which flares away with streams and sparks and bits of blown paper. The old woman pauses against the lit window, a contrast. That I see and Neville does not see. That I feel and Neville does not feel. Hence he will reach perfection and I shall fail, and shall leave nothing behind me but imperfect phrases littered with sand. That's all I'll read for now. Hope you enjoyed.